Chapter 25. Defiance. As Derek Kettering passed the car, Mirelle leant out. "Derek, I must speak to you for a moment." But lifting his hat, Derek passed straight on without stopping. When he got back to his hotel, the concierge detached himself from his wooden pen and accosted him. "A gentleman is waiting to see you, monsieur." "Who is it?" asked Derek. "He did not give his name, monsieur, but he said his business with you was important, and that he would wait." "Where is he?" "In the little salon, monsieur. He preferred it to the lounge, he said, as being more private." Derek nodded and turned his steps in that direction. The small salon was empty, except for the visitor, who rose and bowed with easy, foreign grace as Derek entered. As it chanced, Derek had only seen the Comte de la Roche once, but found no difficulty in recognizing that aristocratic nobleman, and he frowned angrily. Of all the consummate impertinence! "The Comte de la Roche, is it not?" he said. "I'm afraid you have wasted your time in coming here." "I hope not," said the Comte agreeably. His white teeth glittered. The Comte's charm of manner was usually wasted on his own sex. All men, without exception, disliked him heartily. Derek Kettering was already conscious of a distinct longing to kick the Count bodily out of the room. It was only the realization that scandal would be unfortunate just at present that restrained him. He marvelled anew that Ruth could have cared, as she certainly had, for this fellow, a bounder, and worse than a bounder. He looked with distaste at the Comte's exquisitely manicured hands. "I called," said the Comte, "on a little matter of business. It would be advisable, I think, for you to listen to me." Again, Derek felt strongly tempted to kick him out, but again he refrained. The hint of a threat was not lost upon him, but he interpreted it in his own way. There were various reasons why it would be better to hear what the Comte had to say. He sat down and drummed impatiently with his fingers on the table. "Well," he said sharply, "what is it?" It was not the Comte's way to come out into the open at once. "Allow me, monsieur, to offer you my condolences on your recent bereavement." "If I have any impertinence from you," said Derek quietly, "you go out by that window." He nodded his head towards the window beside the Comte, and the latter moved uneasily. "I will send my friends to you, monsieur, if that is what you desire," he said haughtily. Derek laughed. "A duel, eh? My dear Count, I don't take you seriously enough for that, but I should take a good deal of pleasure in kicking you down the Promenade des Anglais." The Comte was not at all anxious to take offence. He merely raised his eyebrows and murmured, "The English are barbarians." "Well," said Derek, "what is it you've got to say to me?" "I will be frank," said the Comte. "I will come immediately to the point. That will suit us both, will it not?" Again he smiled in his agreeable fashion. "Go on," said Derek curtly. The Comte looked at the ceiling, joined the tips of his fingers together, and murmured softly, "You have come into a lot of money, monsieur." "What the devil has that got to do with you?" The Comte drew himself up. "Monsieur, my name is tarnished. I am suspected, accused of foul crime." "The accusation does not come from me," said Derek coldly. "As an interested party, I have not expressed any opinion." "I am innocent," said the Comte. "I swear before heaven," he raised his hand to heaven, "that I am innocent." "Monsieur Carrage is, I believe, the juge d'instruction in charge of the case," hinted Derek politely. The Comte took no notice. "Not only am I unjustly suspected of a crime that I did not commit, but I am also in serious need of money." He coughed softly and suggestively. Derek rose to his feet. "I was waiting for that," he said softly. "You blackmailing brute. I will not give you a penny. My wife is dead, and no scandal that you can make can touch her now. She wrote you foolish letters, I dare say. If I were to buy them from you for a round sum at this minute, I'm pretty certain that you would manage to keep one or two back, and I will tell you this, Monsieur de la Roche. Blackmailing is an ugly word, both in England and France. That is my answer to you. Good afternoon." "One moment." The Comte stretched out a hand as Derek was turning to leave the room. "You are mistaken, monsieur. You are completely mistaken. I am, I hope, a gentleman." Derek laughed. "Any letters that a lady might write to me I should hold sacred." He flung back his head with a beautiful air of nobility. "The proposition that I was putting before you was of a quite different nature. I am, as I said, extremely short of money, and my conscience might impel me to go to the police with certain information." Derek came slowly back into the room. "What do you mean?" The Comte's agreeable smile flashed forth once more. "Surely it is not necessary to go into details," he purred. "Seek whom the crime benefits, they say, don't they? As I said just now, you have come into a lot of money lately." Derek laughed. "If that is all," he said contemptuously, but the Comte was shaking his head. "But it is not all, my dear sir. I should not come to you unless I had much more precise and detailed information than that. It is not agreeable, monsieur, to be arrested and tried for murder." Derek came close up to him. His face expressed such furious anger that involuntarily the Comte drew back a pace or two. "Are you threatening me?" the young man demanded angrily. "You shall hear nothing more of the matter," the Comte assured him. "Of all the colossal bluffs that I ever struck—" The Comte raised a white hand. "You are wrong. It is not a bluff. To convince you, I will tell you this. My information was obtained from a certain lady. It is she who holds the irrefutable proof that you committed the murder." "She? Who?" "Mademoiselle Mirelle." Derek drew back as though struck. "Mirelle," he muttered. The Comte was quick to press what he took to be his advantage. "A bagatelle of 100,000 francs, he said. "I ask no more." "Eh?" said Derek absently. "I was saying, monsieur, that a bagatelle of 100,000 francs would satisfy my conscience." Derek seemed to recollect himself. He looked earnestly at the Comte. "You would like my answer now?" "If you please, monsieur." "Then here it is. You can go to the devil, see?" Leaving the Comte too astonished to speak, Derek turned on his heel and swung out of the room. Once out of the hotel, he hailed a taxi and drove to Mirelle's hotel. On inquiring, he learned that the dancer had just come in. Derek gave the concierge his card. "Take this up to mademoiselle and ask if she'll see me." A very brief interval elapsed, and then Derek was bidden to follow a chasseur. A wave of exotic perfume assailed Derek's nostrils as he stepped over the threshold of the dancer's apartments. The room was filled with carnations, orchids, and mimosa. Mirelle was standing by the window in a peignoir of foamy lace. She came towards him, her hands outstretched. "Derek, you have come to me. I knew you would." He put aside the clinging arms and looked down on her sternly. "Why did you send the Comte de la Roche to me?" She looked at him in astonishment, which he took to be genuine. "I? Send the Comte de la Roche to you? But for what?" "Apparently for blackmail," said Derek grimly. Again she stared. Then suddenly she smiled and nodded her head. "Of course, it was to be expected. It is what he would do, ce type-là. I might have known it. No, indeed, Derek, I did not send him." He looked at her piercingly, as though seeking to read her mind. "I will tell you," said Mirelle. "I am ashamed, but I will tell you. The other day, you comprehend, I was mad with rage. Quite mad." She made an eloquent gesture. "My temperament is not a patient one. I want to be revenged on you, and so I go to the Comte de la Roche, and I tell him to go to the police and say so and so and so and so, but have no fear, Derek. Not completely did I lose my head. The proof rests with me alone. The police can do nothing without my word. You understand? And now?" "Now?" She nestled up close to him, looking at him with melting eyes. He thrust her roughly away from him. She stood there, her breast heaving, her eyes narrowing to a cat-like slit. "Be careful, Derek. Be very careful. You have come back to me, have you not?" "I shall never come back to you," said Derek steadily. "Ah!" More than ever the dancer looked like a cat. Her eyelids flickered. "So, there is another woman. The one with whom you lunched that day, eh? I am right?" "I intend to ask that lady to marry me. You might as well know." "That prim Englishwoman. Do you think that I will support that for one moment? Ah, no." Her beautiful, lithe body quivered. "Listen, Derek. Do you remember that conversation we had in London? You said the only thing that could save you was the death of your wife. You regretted that she was so healthy. Then the idea of an accident came to your brain, and more than an accident." "I suppose," said Derek contemptuously, "that it was this conversation that you repeated to the Comte de la Roche." Mirelle laughed. "Am I a fool? Could the police do anything with a vague story like that? See, I will give you a last chance. You shall give up this Englishwoman, you shall return to me, and then, chérie, never, never will I breathe—" "Breathe what?" She laughed softly. "You thought no one saw you." "What do you mean?" "As I say, you thought no one saw you, but I saw you. Derek, mon ami, I saw you coming out of the compartment of Madame, your wife, just before the train got to Lyon that night. And I know more than that. I know that when you came out of her compartment, she was dead." He stared at her. Then, like a man in a dream, he turned very slowly and went out of the room, swaying slightly as he walked. Chapter 26. A Warning. "And so it is," said Poirot, "that we are the good friends, and have no secrets from each other." Katherine turned her head to look at him. There was something in his voice, some undercurrent of seriousness, which she had not heard before. They were sitting in the gardens of Monte Carlo. Katherine had come over with her friends, and they had run into Knighton and Poirot almost immediately on arrival. Lady Tamplin had seized upon Knighton and had overwhelmed him with reminiscences, most of which Katherine had a faint suspicion were invented. They had moved away together, Lady Tamplin with her hand on the young man's arm. Knighton had thrown a couple of glances back over his shoulder, and Poirot's eyes twinkled a little when he saw them. "Of course we are friends," said Katherine. "From the beginning we have been sympathetic to each other," mused Poirot. "When you told me that a roman policier occurs in real life. And I was right, was I not?" He challenged her with an emphatic forefinger. "Here we are, plunged in the middle of one. That is natural for me, it is my métier, but for you it is different. Yes," he added in a reflective tone, "for you it is different." She looked sharply at him. It was as though he were warning her, pointing out to her some menace that she had not seen. "Why do you say that I am in the middle of it? It's true that I had that conversation with Mrs. Kettering just before she died, but now all that is over. I am not connected with the case any more. Ah, Mademoiselle, can we ever say I have finished with this or that?" Katherine turned defiantly round to face him. "What is it?" she asked. "You're trying to tell me something. To convey it to me, rather. But I'm not clever at taking hints. I would much rather that you said anything you have to say straight out." Poirot looked at her sadly. "Ah, mais c'est anglais, ça," he murmured. "Everything in black and white, everything clear-cut and well-defined. But life, it is not like that, mademoiselle. There are the things that are not yet, but which cast their shadow before." He dabbed his brow with a very large silk pocket-handkerchief and murmured, "Ah, but it is that I become poetical. Let us, as you say, speak only of facts. And speaking of facts, tell me what you think of Major Knighton." "I like him, very much indeed," said Katherine warmly. "He is quite delightful." Poirot sighed. "What is the matter?" asked Katherine. "You reply so heartily," said Poirot. "If you had said in an indifferent voice, 'Oh, quite nice, eh bien,' do you know I should have been better pleased." Katherine did not answer. She felt slightly uncomfortable. Poirot went on dreamily. "And yet, who knows? With les femmes, they have so many ways of concealing what they feel, and heartiness is perhaps as good a way as any other." He sighed. "I don't see," began Katherine. He interrupted her. "You do not see why I am being so impertinent, mademoiselle. I am an old man, and now and then, not very often, I come across someone whose welfare is dear to me. We are friends, mademoiselle. You have said so yourself, and it is just this. I should like to see you happy." Katherine stared very straight in front of her. She had a cretonne sunshade with her, and with its point she traced little designs in the gravel at her feet. "I have asked you a question about Major Knighton. Now I will ask you another. Do you like Mr. Derek Kettering?" "I hardly know him," said Katherine. "That is not an answer, that." "I think it is." He looked at her, struck by something in her tone. Then he nodded his head gravely and slowly. "Perhaps you are right, mademoiselle. See you, I who speak to you have seen much of the world, and I know that there are two things which are true. A good man may be ruined by his love for a bad woman, but the other way also holds good. A bad man may equally be ruined by his love for a good woman." Katherine looked up sharply. "When you say ruined, I mean from his point of view. One must be wholehearted in crime, as in everything else." "You're trying to warn me," said Katherine in a low voice. "Against whom?" "I cannot look into your heart, mademoiselle. I do not think you would let me, even if I could. I will just say this. There are men who have a strange fascination for women." "The Comte de la Roche," said Katherine with a smile. "There are others, more dangerous than the Comte de la Roche. They have qualities that appeal, recklessness, daring, audacity. You are fascinated, mademoiselle, I see that. But I think that it is no more than that." "I hope so. This man of whom I speak, the emotion he feels is genuine enough, but all the same—" "Yes?" He got up and stood looking down at her. Then he spoke in a low, distinct voice. "You could perhaps love a thief, mademoiselle. but not a murderer. He wheeled sharply away on that and left her sitting there. He heard the little gasp she gave and paid no attention. He had said what he meant to say. He left her there to digest that last, unmistakable phrase. Derek Kettering, coming out of the casino into the sunshine, saw her sitting alone on the bench and joined her. "I've been gambling," he said, with a light laugh. "Gambling unsuccessfully. I've lost everything. Everything, that is, that I have with me." Katherine looked at him with a troubled face. She was aware at once of something new in his manner, some hidden excitement that betrayed itself in 100 different infinitesimal signs. "I should think you were always a gambler. The spirit of gambling appeals to you. Every day, and in every way, a gambler. You're right about that. Don't you find anything stimulating in it? To risk all on one throw? There's nothing like it." Calm and stolid as she believed herself to be, Katherine felt a faint answering thrill. "I want to talk to you," went on Derek, "and who knows when I may have another opportunity. There's an idea going about that I murdered my wife. No, please, don't interrupt. It's absurd, of course." He paused for a minute or two, then went on, speaking more deliberately. "In dealing with the police and local authorities here, I have had to pretend to, well, a certain decency. I prefer not to pretend with you. I meant to marry money. I was on the lookout for money when I first met Ruth Van Alden. She had the look of a slim Madonna about her, and I made all sorts of good resolutions and was bitterly disillusioned. My wife was in love with another man when she married me. She never cared for me in the least. Oh, I'm not complaining. The thing was a perfectly respectable bargain. She wanted Leconbury, and I wanted money. The trouble arose simply through Ruth's American blood. Without caring a pin for me, she would have liked me to be continually dancing attendance. Time and time again she as good as told me that she had bought me, and that I belonged to her. The result was that I behaved abominably to her. My father-in-law will tell you that, and he's quite right. At the time of Ruth's death, I was faced with absolute disaster." He laughed suddenly. "One is faced with absolute disaster when one is up against a man like Rufus Van Alden." "And then?" asked Katherine, in a low voice. "And then," Derek shrugged his shoulders, "Ruth was murdered. Very providentially." He laughed, and the sound of his laugh hurt Katherine. She winced. "Yes," said Derek, "that wasn't in very good taste. But it is quite true. Now I'm going to tell you something more. From the very first moment I saw you, I knew you were the only woman in the world for me. I was afraid of you. I thought you might bring me bad luck." "Bad luck?" said Katherine sharply. He stared at her. "Why do you repeat it like that? What have you got in your mind?" "I was thinking of things that people have said to me." Derek grinned suddenly. "They will say a lot to you about me, my dear, and most of it will be true. Yes, and worse things too. Things that I shall never tell you. I've been a gambler always, and I've taken some long odds I shan't confess to you now or at any other time. The past is done with. There is one thing I do wish you to believe. I swear to you solemnly that I did not kill my wife." He said the words earnestly enough, yet there was somehow a theatrical touch about them. He met her troubled gaze and went on, "I know, I lied the other day. It was my wife's compartment I went into." "Ah," said Katherine. "It's difficult to explain just why I went in, but I'll try. I did it on an impulse. You see, I was more or less spying on my wife. I kept out of sight on the train. Mirelle had told me that my wife was meeting the Comte de la Roche in Paris. Well, as far as I had seen, this was not so. I felt ashamed, and I thought suddenly that it would be a good thing to have it out with her once and for all, so I pushed open the door and went in." He paused. "Yes?" said Katherine gently. "Ruth was lying on the bunk asleep. Her face was turned away from me. I could only see the back of her head. I could have woken her up, of course, but suddenly I felt a reaction. What, after all, was there to say that we hadn't both of us said 100 times before? She looked so peaceful lying there. I left the compartment as quietly as I could." "Why lie about it to the police?" asked Katherine. "Because I'm not a complete fool. I've realized from the beginning that, from the point of view of motive, I'm the ideal murderer. If I once admitted that I had been in her compartment just before she was murdered, I'd do for myself once and for all." "I see." Did she see? She could not have told herself. She was feeling the magnetic attraction of Derrick's personality, but there was something in her that resisted, that held back. "Katherine, you know that I care for you. Do you care for me? I don't know." Weakness there. Either she knew or she did not know. If only— She cast a look round desperately, as though seeking something that would help her. A soft colour rose in her cheeks as a tall, fair man with a limp came hurrying along the path towards them. Major Knighton. There was relief, and an unexpected warmth in her voice as she greeted him. Derrick stood up, scowling, his face black as a thundercloud. "Lady Tamplin having a flutter?" he said easily. "I must join her, and give her the benefit of my system." He swung round on his heel and left them together. Katherine sat down again. Her heart was beating rapidly and unevenly, but as she sat there, talking commonplaces to the quiet, rather shy man beside her, her self-command came back. Then she realized with a shock that Knighton was also laying bare his heart, much as Derrick had done, but in a very different manner. He was shy and stammering. The words came haltingly, with no eloquence to back them. "From the first moment I saw you, I ought not to have spoken so soon, but Mr. Van Alden may leave here any day, and I might not have another chance. I know you can't care for me so soon. That is impossible. I dare say it's presumption on my part. I have private means, but not very much. No, please don't answer now. I know what your answer would be. But in case I went away suddenly, I just wanted you to know that I care." She was shaken, touched. His manner was so gentle and appealing. "There's one more thing. I just wanted to say that if you are ever in trouble, anything that I can do—" He took her hand in his, held it tightly for a minute, then dropped it, and walked rapidly away towards the casino without looking back. Katherine sat perfectly still, looking after him. Derrick Kettering? Richard Knighton. Two men so different, so very different. There was something kind about Knighton, kind and trustworthy. As to Derrick— Then suddenly Katherine had a very curious sensation. She felt that she was no longer sitting alone in the seat in the casino gardens, but that someone was standing beside her, and that someone was the dead woman, Ruth Kettering. She had a further impression that Ruth wanted badly to tell her something. The impression was so curious, so vivid, that it could not be driven away. She felt absolutely certain that the spirit of Ruth Kettering was trying to convey something of vital importance to her. The impression faded. Katherine got up, trembling a little. What was it that Ruth Kettering had wanted so badly to say? Chapter 27. Interview with Mirelle. When Knighton left Katherine, he went in search of Hercule Poirot, whom he found in the rooms, jauntily placing the minimum stake on the even numbers. As Knighton joined him, the number 33 turned up, and Poirot's stake was swept away. "Bad luck," said Knighton. "Are you going to stake again?" Poirot shook his head. "Not at present." "Do you feel the fascination of gambling?" asked Knighton curiously. "Not at the roulette." Knighton shot a swift glance at him. His own face became troubled. He spoke haltingly with a touch of deference. "I wonder, are you busy, Monsieur Poirot? There's something I'd like to ask you about." "I am at your disposal." "Shall we go outside? It is pleasant in the sunshine." They strolled out together, and Knighton drew a deep breath. "I love the Riviera," he said. "I came here first 12 years ago during the war, when I was sent to Lady Tamplin's hospital. It was like paradise, coming from Flanders to this." "It must have been," said Poirot. "How long ago the war seems now," mused Knighton. They walked on in silence for some little way. "You have something on your mind?" said Poirot. Knighton looked at him in some surprise. "You're quite right," he confessed. "I don't know how you knew it, though." "It showed itself only too plainly," said Poirot dryly. "I did not know that I was so transparent." "It is my business to observe the physiognomy," the little man explained with dignity. "I will tell you, Monsieur Poirot. You have heard of this dancer woman, Mirelle? She who is the chère amie of Monsieur Derrick Kettering?" "Yes, that's the one. And knowing this, you will understand that Mr. Van Alden is naturally prejudiced against her. She wrote to him, asking for an interview. He told me to dictate a curt refusal, which of course I did. This morning she came to the hotel and sent up her card, saying that it was urgent and vital that she should see Mr. Van Alden at once. "You interest me," said Poirot. Mr. Van Alden was furious. He told me what message to send down to her. I ventured to disagree with him. It seemed to me both likely and probable that this woman Mirelle might give us valuable information. We know that she was on the blue train, and she may have seen or heard something that it might be vital for us to know. Don't you agree with me, Monsieur Poirot?" "I do," said Poirot dryly. "Monsieur Van Alden, if I may say so, behaved exceedingly foolishly." "I'm glad you take that view of the matter," said the secretary. "Now, I'm going to tell you something, Monsieur Poirot. So strongly did I feel the unwisdom of Mr. Van Alden's attitude that I went down privately and had an interview with the lady." "Eh bien?" "The difficulty was that she insisted on seeing Mr. Van Alden himself. I softened his message as much as I possibly could. In fact, to be candid, I gave it in a very different form. I said that Mr. Van Alden was too busy to see her at present, but that she might make any communication she wished to me. That, however, she could not bring herself to do, and she left without saying anything further. But I have a strong impression, Monsieur Poirot, that that woman knows something." "This is serious," said Poirot quietly. "You know where she is staying?" "Yes." Knighton mentioned the name of the hotel. "Good," said Poirot. "We will go there immediately." The secretary looked doubtful. "And Mr. Van Alden?" he queried doubtfully. "Monsieur Van Alden is an obstinate man," said Poirot dryly. "I do not argue with obstinate men. I act in spite of them. We will go and see the lady immediately. I will tell her that you are empowered by Monsieur Van Alden to act for him, and you will guard yourself well from contradicting me." Knighton still looked doubtful, but Poirot took no notice of his hesitation. At the hotel, they were told that Mademoiselle was in, and Poirot sent up both his and Knighton's cards, with "From Mr. Van Alden" penciled upon them. Word came down that Mademoiselle Mirelle would receive them. When they were ushered into the dancer's apartments, Poirot immediately took the lead. "Mademoiselle," he murmured, bowing very low, "we are here on behalf of Monsieur Van Alden." "Ah, and why did he not come himself?" "He is indisposed," said Poirot mendaciously. "The Riviera throat, it has him in its grip. But me, I am empowered to act for him, as is Major Knighton, his secretary, unless, of course, Mademoiselle would prefer to wait a fortnight or so." If there was one thing of which Poirot was tolerably certain, it was that to a temperament such as Mirelle's, the mere word wait was anathema. "Eh bien, I will speak, monsieur," she cried. "I have been patient. I have held my hand, and for what? That I should be insulted? Yes, insulted. Ah, does he think to treat Mirelle like that? To throw her off like an old glove? I tell you, never has a man tired of me. Always it is I who tire of them." She paced up and down the room, her slender body trembling with rage. A small table impeded her free passage, and she flung it from her into a corner where it splintered against the wall. "That is what I will do to him," she cried, "and that!" Picking up a glass bowl filled with lilies, she flung it into the grate, where it smashed into 100 pieces. Knighton was looking at her with cold British disapproval. He felt embarrassed and ill at ease. Poirot, on the other hand, with twinkling eyes, was thoroughly enjoying the scene. "Ah, it is magnificent," he cried. "It can be seen. Madame has a temperament." "I am an artist," said Mirelle. "Every artist has a temperament. I told Derrick to beware, and he would not listen." She whirled round on Poirot suddenly. "It is true, is it not, that he wants to marry that English miss?" Poirot coughed. "On m'a dit," he murmured, "that he adores her passionately." Mirelle came towards them. "He murdered his wife!" she screamed. "There! Now you have it. He told me beforehand that he meant to do it. He had got to an impasse. Zut! He took the easiest way out." "You say that Monsieur Katherine murdered his wife?" "Yes, yes, yes! Have I not told you so?" "The police," murmured Poirot, "will need proof of that. Statement." "I tell you, I saw him come out of her compartment that night on the train." "When?" Poirot asked sharply. "Just before the train reached Lyons." "You will swear to that, mademoiselle?" It was a different Poirot who spoke now, sharp and decisive. "Yes." There was a moment's silence. Mirelle was panting, and her eyes, half defiant, half frightened, went from the face of one man to the other. "This is a serious matter, mademoiselle," said the detective. "You realize how serious?" "Certainly I do." "That is well," said Poirot. "Then you understand, mademoiselle, that no time must be lost. You will perhaps accompany us immediately to the office of the examining magistrate." Mirelle was taken aback. She hesitated, but as Poirot had foreseen, she had no loophole for escape. "Very well," she muttered. "I will fetch a coat." Left alone together, Poirot and Knighton exchanged glances. "It is necessary to act while, how do you say it, the iron is hot," murmured Poirot. "She is temperamental. In an hour's time, maybe she will repent, and she will wish to draw back. We must prevent that at all costs." Mirelle reappeared, wrapped in a sand-coloured velvet wrap trimmed with leopard skin. She looked not altogether unlike a leopardess, tawny and dangerous. Her eyes still flashed with anger and determination. They found Monsieur Comte and the examining magistrate together. A few brief introductory words from Poirot, and Mademoiselle Mirelle was courteously entreated to tell her tale. This she did, in much the same words as she had done to Knighton and Poirot, though with far more soberness of manner. "This is an extraordinary story, mademoiselle," said Monsieur Carrege slowly. He leant back in his chair, adjusting his pince-nez, and looked keenly and searchingly at the dancer through them. "You wish us to believe Monsieur Kettering actually boasted of the crime to you beforehand?" Yes, she was too healthy," he said. "If she were to die, it must be an accident. He would arrange it all." "You are aware, mademoiselle," said Monsieur Carrege sternly, "that you are making yourself out to be an accessory before the fact." "Me? But not the least in the world, monsieur. Not for a moment did I take that statement seriously. Ah, no, indeed. I know men, monsieur. They say many wild things. It would be an odd state of affairs if one were to take all they said au pied de la lettre." The examining magistrate raised his eyebrows. "We are to take it, then, that you regarded Monsieur Kettering's threats as mere idle words. May I ask, mademoiselle, what made you throw up your engagements in London and come out to the Riviera?" Mirelle looked at him with melting black eyes. "I wished to be with the man I loved," she said simply. "Was it so unnatural?" Poirot interpolated a question gently. "Was it, then, at Monsieur Kettering's wishes that you accompanied him to Nice?" Mirelle seemed to find a little difficulty in answering this. She hesitated perceptibly before she spoke. When she did, it was with a haughty indifference of manner. "In such matters, I please myself, monsieur," she said. That the answer was not an answer at all was noted by all three men. They said nothing. "When were you first convinced that Monsieur Kettering had murdered his wife?" "As I tell you, monsieur, I saw Monsieur Kettering come out of his wife's compartment just before the train drew into Lyon. There was a look on his face. At the moment, I could not understand it. A look haunted and terrible. I shall never forget it." Her voice rose shrilly, and she flung out her arms in an extravagant gesture. "Quite so," said Monsieur Carrege. "Afterwards, when I found that Madame Kettering was dead when the train left Lyon, then I knew." "And still you did not go to the police, mademoiselle," said the commissary mildly. Mirelle glanced at him superbly. She was clearly enjoying herself in the role she was playing. "Shall I betray my lover?" she asked. "Ah, no. Do not ask a woman to do that." "Yet now," hinted Monsieur Comte. "Now it is different. He has betrayed me. Shall I suffer that in silence?" The examining magistrate checked her. "Quite so, he murmured soothingly. "And now, mademoiselle, perhaps you will read over the statement of what you have told us. See that it is correct, and sign it." Mirelle wasted no time on the document. Yes, she said. "It is correct." She rose to her feet. "You require me no longer, monsieur?" "At present, no, mademoiselle." "And Derrick will be arrested?" "At once, mademoiselle." Mirelle laughed cruelly and drew her fur draperies closer about her. "He should have thought of this before he insulted me," she cried. "There is one little matter," Poirot coughed apologetically. "Just a matter of detail." "Yes? What makes you think that Madame Kettering was dead when the train left Lyon?" Mirelle stared. "But she was dead." "Was she?" "Oh, yes, of course She came to an abrupt stop. Poirot was regarding her intently, and he saw the wary look that came into her eyes. I have been told so. Everybody says so." "Oh," said Poirot. "I was not aware that the fact had been mentioned outside the examining magistrate's office." Mirelle appeared somewhat discomposed. "One hears these things," she said vaguely. "They get about. Somebody told me. I can't remember who it was." She moved to the door. Monsieur Comte sprang forward to open it for her, and as he did so, Poirot's voice rose gently once more. "And the jewels? Pardon, mademoiselle. Can you tell me anything about those?" "The jewels? What jewels?" "The rubies of Katherine the Great. Since you hear so much, you must have heard of them." "I know nothing about any jewels," said Mirelle sharply. She went out, closing the door behind her. Monsieur Coe came back to his chair. The examining magistrate sighed. "What a fury," he said. "But diablement chic. I wonder if she is telling the truth. I think so." "There is some truth in her story, certainly," said Poirot. "We have confirmation of it from Miss Grey. She was looking down the corridor a short time before the train reached Lyons, and she saw Monsieur Kettering go into his wife's compartment." "The case against him seems quite clear," said the commissary, sighing. "It is 1,000 pities," he murmured. "How do you mean?" asked Poirot. "It has been the ambition of my life to lay the Comte de la Roche by the heels. This time, ma foi, I thought we had got him. This other, it is not nearly so satisfactory." Monsieur Carrege rubbed his nose. "If anything goes wrong," he observed cautiously, "it will be most awkward. Monsieur Kettering is of the aristocracy. It will get into the newspapers. If we have made a mistake—" He shrugged his shoulders forebodingly. "The jewels now," said the commissary. "What do you think he has done with them?" "He took them for a plant, of course," said Monsieur Carrege. "They must have been a great inconvenience to him, and very awkward to dispose of." Poirot smiled. "I have an idea of my own about the jewels. Tell me, monsieur, what do you know of a man called the Marquis?" The commissary leant forward excitedly. "The Marquis?" he said. "The Marquis? Do you think he is mixed up in this affair, Monsieur Poirot?" "I ask you what you know of him." The commissary made an expressive grimace. "Not as much as we should like to," he observed ruefully. "He works behind the scenes, you understand? He has underlings who do his dirty work for him. But he is someone high up, that we are sure of. He does not come from the criminal classes. A Frenchman? Yes, at least we believe so, but we are not sure. He has worked in France, in England, in America. There was a series of robberies in Switzerland last autumn which were laid at his door. By all accounts, he is a grand seigneur, speaking French and English with equal perfection, and his origin is a mystery." Poirot nodded and rose to take his departure. "Can you tell us nothing more, Monsieur Poirot?" urged the commissary. "At present, no," said Poirot, "but I may have news awaiting me at my hotel." Monsieur Carrege looked uncomfortable. "If the Marquis is concerned in this—" he began, and then stopped. "It upsets our ideas," complained Monsieur Coe. "It does not upset mine," said Poirot. "On the contrary, I think it agrees with them very well. Au revoir, messieurs. If news of any importance comes to me, I will communicate it to you immediately." He walked back to his hotel with a grave face. In his absence, a telegram had come for him. Taking a paper cutter from his pocket, he slit it open. It was a long telegram, and he read it over twice before slowly putting it in his pocket. Upstairs, George was awaiting his master. "I am fatigued, George, much fatigued. Will you order for me a small pot of chocolate?" The chocolate was duly ordered and brought, and George set it at the little table at his master's elbow. As he was preparing to retire, Poirot spoke. "I believe, George, that you have a good knowledge of the English aristocracy," murmured Poirot. George smiled apologetically. "I think that I might say that I have, sir," he replied. "I suppose that it is your opinion, George, that criminals are invariably drawn from the lower orders." "Not always, sir. There was a great trouble with one of the Duke of Devise's younger sons. He left Eton under a cloud, and after that he caused great anxiety on several occasions. The police would not accept the view that it was kleptomania. A very clever young gentleman, sir, but vicious through and through, if you take my meaning. His Grace shipped him to Australia, and I hear he was convicted out there under another name. Very odd, sir, but there it is. The young gentleman, I need hardly say, was not in want financially." Poirot nodded his head slowly. "Love of excitement," he murmured, "and a little kink in the brain somewhere. I wonder now." He drew out the telegram from his pocket and read it again. "Then there was Lady Mary Fox's daughter," continued the valet in a mood of reminiscence. "Swindled tradespeople, something shocking she did. Very worrying to the best families, if I may say so, and there are many other queer cases I could mention." "You have a wide experience, George," murmured Poirot. "I often wonder, having lived so exclusively with titled families, that you demean yourself by coming as a valet to me. I put it down to love of excitement on your part." "Not exactly, sir," said George. "I happened to see in society snippets that you had been received at Buckingham Palace. That was just when I was looking for a new situation. His Majesty, so it said, had been most gracious and friendly, and thought very highly of your abilities. Ah, said Poirot. One always likes to know the reason for things. He remained in thought for a few moments, and then said, You rang up Mademoiselle Papopolous? Yes, sir. She and her father will be pleased to dine with you tonight. Ah, said Poirot thoughtfully. He drank off his chocolate, set the cup and saucer neatly in the middle of the tray, and spoke gently, more to himself than to the valet. The squirrel, my good Georges, collects nuts. He stores them up in the autumn, so that they may be of advantage to him later. To make a success of humanity, Georges, we must profit by the lessons of those below us in the animal kingdom. I have always done so. I have been the cat, watching the mouse hole. I have been the good dog, following up the scent and not taking my nose from the trail. And also, my good Georges, I have been the squirrel. I have stored away the little fact here, the little fact there. I go now to my store, and I take out one particular nut, a nut that I stored away, let me see, 17 years ago. You follow me, Georges? I should hardly have thought, sir, said George, that nuts would have kept so long as that, though I know one can do wonders with preserving bottles. Poirot looked at him and smiled. Chapter 28. Poirot plays the squirrel. Poirot started to keep his dinner appointment with a margin of 3/4 of an hour to spare. He had an object in this. The car took him not straight to Monte Carlo, but to Lady Tamplin's house at Cap Martin, where he asked for Miss Grey. The ladies were dressing, and Poirot was shown into a small salon to wait, and here, after a lapse of 3 or 4 minutes, Lennox Tamplin came to him. "Katherine is not quite ready yet," she said. "Can I give her a message, or would you rather wait until she comes down?" Poirot looked at her thoughtfully. He was a minute or two in replying, as though something of great weight hung upon his decision. Apparently the answer to such a simple question mattered. "No," he said at last. "No, I do not think it is necessary that I should wait to see Mademoiselle Katherine. I think perhaps that it is better that I should not. These things are sometimes difficult." Lennox waited politely, her eyebrows slightly raised. "I have a piece of news," continued Poirot. "You will perhaps tell your friend. Monsieur Kettering was arrested tonight for the murder of his wife." "You want me to tell Katherine that?" asked Lennox. She breathed rather hard, as though she had been running. Her face, Poirot thought, looked white and strained, rather noticeably so. "If you please, mademoiselle." "Why?" said Lennox. "Do you think Katherine will be upset? Do you think she cares?" "I do not know, mademoiselle," said Poirot. "See, I admit it frankly. As a rule, I know everything. But in this case, I do not. You perhaps know better than I do." "Yes," said Lennox. "I know, but I'm not going to tell you all the same." She paused for a minute or two, her dark brows drawn together in a frown. "You believe he did it?" she said abruptly. Poirot shrugged his shoulders. "The police say so." "Ah," said Lennox. "Hedging, are you? So there is something to hedge about." Again she was silent, frowning. Poirot said gently, "You have known Derek Kettering a long time, have you not?" "Off and on since I was a kid," said Lennox gruffly. Poirot nodded his head several times without speaking. With one of her brusque movements, Lennox drew forward a chair and sat down on it, her elbows on the table and her face supported by her hands. Sitting thus, she looked directly across the table at Poirot. "What have they got to go on?" she demanded. "Motive, I suppose. Probably came into money at her death." "He came into 2 million. And if she had not died, would he have been ruined?" "Yes. But there must have been more than that," persisted Lennox. "He travelled by the same train, I know, but that would not be enough to go on by itself. A cigarette case with the letter K on it, which did not belong to Mrs. Kettering, was found in her carriage, and he was seen by 2 people entering and leaving the compartment just before the train got to Lyon." "What 2 people?" "Your friend Miss Grey was one of them. The other was Mademoiselle Mirelle, the dancer." "And he, Derek, what has he got to say about it?" demanded Lennox sharply. "He denies having entered his wife's compartment at all," said Poirot. "Fool," said Lennox crisply, frowning. "Just before Lyon, you say? Does nobody know when? When she died?" "The doctor's evidence necessarily cannot be very definite," said Poirot. "They are inclined to think that death was unlikely to have occurred after leaving Lyon, and we know this much, that a few moments after leaving Lyon, Mrs. Kettering was dead." "How do you know that?" Poirot was smiling rather oddly to himself. Someone else went into her compartment and found her dead. And they did not rouse the train? No. Why was that? Doubtless they had their reasons. Lennox looked at him sharply. Do you know the reason? I think so, yes. Lennox sat still, turning things over in her mind. Poirot watched her in silence. At last she looked up. A soft colour had come into her cheeks, and her eyes were shining. You think someone on the train must have killed her? But that need not be so at all. What is to stop anyone swinging themselves onto the train when it stopped at Lyons? They could go straight to her compartment, strangle her, take her rubies, and drop off the train again without anyone being the wiser. She may have been actually killed while the train was in Lyons station. Then she would have been alive when Derek went in, and dead when the other person found her. Poirot leaned back in his chair. He drew a deep breath. He looked across at the girl and nodded his head 3 times. Then he heaved a sigh. "Mademoiselle," he said, "what you have said there is very just, very true. I was struggling in the darkness, and you have shown me a light. There was a point that puzzled me, and you have made it plain." He got up. "And Derek?" said Lennox. "Who knows?" said Poirot, with a shrug of his shoulders. "But I will tell you this, mademoiselle. I am not satisfied. No, I, Hercule Poirot, am not yet satisfied. It may be that this very night I shall learn something more. At least, I go to try. You are meeting someone?" "Yes." "Someone who knows something?" "Someone who might know something. In these matters one must leave no stone unturned. Au revoir, mademoiselle." Lennox accompanied him to the door. "Have I helped?" she asked. Poirot's face softened as he looked up at her standing on the doorstep above him. "Yes, mademoiselle, you have helped. If things are very dark, always remember that." When the car had driven off, he relapsed into a frowning absorption, but in his eyes was that faint green light which was always the precursor of the triumph to be. He was a few minutes late at the rendezvous, and found that Monsieur Papopolous and his daughter had arrived before him. His apologies were abject, and he outdid himself in politeness and small attentions. The Greek was looking particularly benign and noble this evening, a sorrowful patriarch of blameless life. Zia was looking handsome and good-humoured. The dinner was a pleasant one. Poirot was his best and most sparkling self. He told anecdotes, he made jokes, he paid graceful compliments to Zia Papopolous, and he told many interesting incidents of his career. The menu was a carefully selected one, and the wine was excellent. At the close of dinner, Monsieur Papopolous inquired politely, "And the tip I gave you, you have had your little flutter on the horse?" "I am in communication with my bookmaker," replied Poirot. The eyes of the 2 men met. "A well-known horse, eh?" "No," said Poirot. "It is what our friends the English call a dark horse." "Ah," said Monsieur Papopolous thoughtfully. "Now we must step across to the casino and have our little flutter at the roulette table," cried Poirot gaily. At the casino the party separated, Poirot devoting himself solely to Zia, whilst Papopolous himself drifted away. Poirot was not fortunate, but Zia had a run of good luck, and had soon won a few thousand francs. "It would be as well," she observed dryly to Poirot, "if I stop now." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Superbe," he exclaimed. "You are the daughter of your father, Mademoiselle Zia. You know when to stop. Ha ha, that is the art." He looked round the rooms. "I cannot see your father anywhere about," he remarked carelessly. "I will fetch your cloak for you, mademoiselle, and we will go out in the gardens." He did not, however, go straight to the cloakroom. His sharp eyes had seen but a little while before the departure of Monsieur Papopolous. He was anxious to know what had become of the wily Greek. He ran him to earth unexpectedly in the big entrance hall. He was standing by one of the pillars, talking to a lady who had just arrived. The lady was Mirelle. Poirot sidled unostentatiously round the room. He arrived at the other side of the pillar, and unnoticed by the 2 who were talking together in an animated fashion, or rather, that is to say, the dancer was talking, Papopolous contributing an occasional monosyllable and a good many expressive gestures. "I tell you, I must have time," the dancer was saying. "If you give me time, I will get the money." "To wait," the Greek shrugged his shoulders. "It is awkward." "Only a very little while," pleaded the other. "Ah, but you must. A week, 10 days, that is all I ask. You can be sure of your affair. The money will be forthcoming." Papopolous shifted a little and looked round him uneasily, to find Poirot almost at his elbow with a beaming, innocent face. "Ah, vous voilà! Monsieur Papopolous, I have been looking for you. It is permitted that I take Mademoiselle Zia for a little turn in the gardens? Good evening, mademoiselle." He bowed very low to Mirelle. "1,000 pardons that I did not see you immediately." The dancer accepted his greetings rather impatiently. She was clearly annoyed at the interruption of her tête-à-tête. Poirot was quick to take the hint. Papopolous had already murmured, "Certainly, but certainly," and Poirot withdrew forthwith. He fetched Zia's cloak, and together they strolled out into the gardens. "This is where the suicides take place," said Zia. Poirot shrugged his shoulders. "So it is said. Men are foolish, are they not, mademoiselle? To eat, to drink, to breathe the good air, it is a very pleasant thing, mademoiselle. One is foolish to leave all that simply because one has no money, or because the heart aches. L'amour, it causes many fatalities, does it not?" Zia laughed. "You should not laugh at love, mademoiselle," said Poirot, shaking an energetic forefinger at her. "You who are young and beautiful." "Hardly that," said Zia. "You forget that I am 33, Monsieur Poirot. I am frank with you, because it is no good being otherwise. As you told my father, it is exactly 17 years since you aided us in Paris that time." "When I look at you, it seems much less," said Poirot gallantly. "You were then very much as you are now, mademoiselle. A little thinner, a little paler, a little more serious. 16 years old, and fresh from your pension. Not quite the petite pensionnaire, not quite a woman. You were very delicious, very charming, Mademoiselle Zia. Others thought so too, without doubt." "At 16, said Zia, "one is simple and a little fool." "That may be," said Poirot. "Yes, that may well be. At 16 one is credulous, is one not? One believes what one is told." If he saw the quick sideways glance that the girl shot at him, he pretended not to have done so. He continued dreamily, "It was a curious affair, that, altogether. Your father, mademoiselle, has never understood the true inwardness of it." "No? When he asked me for details, for explanations, I said to him thus, 'Without scandal, I have got back for you that which was lost. You must ask no questions.' Do you know, mademoiselle, why I said these things?" "I have no idea," said the girl coldly. "It was because I had a soft spot in my heart for a little pensionnaire, so pale, so thin, so serious." "I don't understand what you are talking about," cried Zia angrily. "Do you not, mademoiselle? Have you forgotten Antonio Pirezio?" He heard the quick intake of her breath, almost a gasp. "He came to work as an assistant in the shop, but not thus could he have got hold of what he wanted. An assistant can lift his eyes to his master's daughter, can he not, if he is young and handsome with a glib tongue? And since they cannot make love all the time, they must occasionally talk of things that interest them both, such as that very interesting thing which was temporarily in Monsieur Papopoulos's possession. And since, as you say, mademoiselle, the young are foolish and credulous, it was easy to believe him, and to give him a sight of that particular thing, to show him where it was kept. And afterwards, when it is gone, when the unbelievable catastrophe has happened, alas, the poor little pensionnaire, what a terrible position she is in. She is frightened, the poor little one, to speak or not to speak. And then there comes along that excellent fellow Hercule Poirot. Almost a miracle it must have been, the way things arranged themselves. The priceless heirlooms are restored, and there are no awkward questions." Zia turned on him fiercely. "You have known all the time! Who told you? Was it Antonio?" Poirot shook his head. "No one told me," he said quietly. "I guessed. It was a good guess, was it not, mademoiselle? You see, unless you are good at guessing, it is not much use being a detective." The girl walked along beside him for some minutes, in silence. Then she said in a hard voice, "Well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to tell my father?" "No," said Poirot sharply. "Certainly not." She looked at him curiously. "You want something from me?" "I want your help, mademoiselle." "What makes you think I can help you?" "I do not think so. I only hope so." "And if I do not help you, then? Will you tell my father?" But no. Debarrass yourself of that idea, mademoiselle. I am not a blackmailer. I do not hold your secret over your head and threaten you with it." "If I refuse to help you," the girl began slowly. "Then you refuse, and that is that." "Then why?" She stopped. "Listen, and I will tell you why. Women, mademoiselle, are generous. If they can render a service to one who has rendered a service to them, they will do it. I was generous once to you, mademoiselle. When I might have spoken, I held my tongue." There was another silence. Then the girl said, "My father gave you a hint the other day." "It was very kind of him." "I do not think," said Zia slowly, "that there is anything that I can add to that." If Poirot was disappointed, he did not show it. Not a muscle of his face changed. "Eh bien," he said cheerfully, "then we must talk of other things." and he proceeded to chat gaily. The girl was distraite, however, and her answers were mechanical and not always to the point. It was when they were approaching the casino once more that she seemed to come to a decision. "Monsieur Poirot?" "Yes, mademoiselle. I should like to help you if I could. You are very amiable, mademoiselle, very amiable." Again there was a pause. Poirot did not press her. He was quite content to wait and let her take her own time. "Ah, bah," said Zia. "After all, why should I not tell you? My father is cautious, always cautious in everything he says, but I know that with you it is not necessary. You have told us it is only the murderer you seek, and that you are not concerned over the jewels. I believe you. You were quite right when you guessed we were in Nice because of the rubies. They have been handed over here according to plan. My father has them now. He gave you a hint the other day as to who our mysterious client was." "The Marquis," murmured Poirot softly. "Yes, the Marquis." "Have you ever seen the Marquis, Mademoiselle Zia?" "Once," said the girl, "but not very well," she added. "It was through a keyhole." "That always presents difficulties," said Poirot sympathetically. "But all the same you saw him. Would you know him again?" Zia shook her head. "He wore a mask," she explained. "Young or old?" "He had white hair. It may have been a wig, it may not. It fitted very well. But I do not think he was old. His walk was young, and so was his voice." "His voice," said Poirot thoughtfully. "Ah, his voice. Would you know it again, Mademoiselle Zia?" "I might," said the girl. "You were interested in him, eh? It was that took you to the keyhole." Zia nodded. Yes, I was curious. One had heard so much. He is not the ordinary thief. He is more like a figure of history or romance." "Yes," said Poirot thoughtfully. "Yes, perhaps so." "But it is not this that I meant to tell you," said Zia. "It was just one other little fact that I thought might be, well, useful to you." "Yes?" said Poirot encouragingly. "The rubies, as I say, were handed over to my father here at Nice. I did not see the person who handed them over, but—" "Yes?" "I know one thing. It was a woman." Chapter 29. A Letter from Home. Dear Katherine, living among grand friends as you are doing now, I don't suppose you will care to hear any of our news. But as I always thought you were a sensible girl, perhaps you are a trifle less swollen-headed than I suppose. Everything goes on much the same here. There was great trouble about the new curate, who is scandalously high. In my view, he is neither more nor less than a Roman. Everybody has spoken to the vicar about it, but you know what the vicar is, all Christian charity, and no proper spirit. I've had a lot of trouble with maids lately. That girl Annie was no good, skirts up to her knees, and wouldn't wear sensible woolen stockings. Not one of them can bear being spoken to. I've had a lot of pain with my rheumatism one way and another, and Dr. Harris persuaded me to go and see a London specialist, a waste of 3 guineas and a railway fare, as I told him, but by waiting until Wednesday I managed to get a cheap return. The London doctor pulled a long face and talked all round and about and never straight out, until I said to him, "I'm a plain woman, doctor, and I like things to be plainly stated. Is it cancer, or is it not?" And then, of course, he had to say it was. They say a year with care, and not too much pain, though I'm sure I can bear pain as well as any other Christian woman. Life seems rather lonely at times, with most of my friends dead or gone before. I wish you were in St. Mary Mead, my dear, and that is a fact. If you hadn't come into this money and gone off into grand society, I would have offered you double the salary poor Jane gave you to come and look after me. But there's no good wanting what we can't get. However, if things should go ill with you, and that is always possible, I have heard no end of tales of bogus noblemen marrying girls and getting hold of their money, and then leaving them at the church door. I dare say you are too sensible for anything of the kind to happen to you, but one never knows, and never having had much attention of any kind, it might go easily to your head now, so just in case, my dear, remember there is always a home for you here. And though a plain-spoken woman, I am a warm-hearted one, too. Your affectionate old friend, Amelia Viner. P.S. I saw a mention of you in the paper with your cousin, Viscountess Tamplin, and I cut it out and put it with my cuttings. I prayed for you on Sunday, that you might be kept from pride and vainglory. Katherine read this characteristic epistle through twice. Then she laid it down and stared out of her bedroom window across the blue waters of the Mediterranean. She felt a curious lump in her throat. A sudden wave of longing for St. Mary Mead swept over her, so full of familiar, everyday, stupid little things, and yet home. She felt very inclined to lay her head down on her arms and indulge in a real good cry. Lennox, coming in at that moment, saved her. "Hello, Katherine," said Lennox. "I say, what is the matter?" "Nothing," said Katherine, grabbing up Miss Viner's letter and thrusting it into her handbag. "You looked rather queer," said Lennox. "I say, I hope you don't mind. I rang up your detective friend, Monsieur Poirot, and asked him to lunch with us in Nice. I said you wanted to see him, as I thought he might not come for me." "Did you want to see him, then?" asked Katherine. "Yes," said Lennox. "I've rather lost my heart to him. I never met a man before whose eyes were really green, like a cat's." "All right," said Katherine. She spoke listlessly. The last few days had been trying. Derek Kettering's arrest had been the topic of the hour, and the blue train mystery had been thrashed out from every conceivable standpoint. "I've ordered the car," said Lennox, "and I've told Mother some lie or other. Unfortunately, I can't remember exactly what, but it won't matter, as she never remembers. If she knew where we were going, she would want to come too, to pump Monsieur Poirot." The two girls arrived at the Negresco to find Poirot waiting. He was full of Gallic politeness, and showered so many compliments upon the two girls that they were soon helpless with laughter. Yet for all that, the meal was not a gay one. Katherine was dreamy and distracted, and Lennox made bursts of conversation, interspersed by silences. As they were sitting on the terrace sipping their coffee, she suddenly attacked Poirot bluntly. "How are things going? You know what I mean." Poirot shrugged his shoulders. "They take their course," he said. "And you are just letting them take their course?" He looked at Lennox a little sadly. "You are young, mademoiselle. But there are three things that cannot be hurried: le bon Dieu, nature, and old people." "Nonsense," said Lennox. "You're not old." "Ah, it is pretty what you say there." "Here is Major Knighton," said Lennox. Katherine looked round quickly and then turned back again. "He is with Mr. Van Alden," continued Lennox. "There is something I want to ask Major Knighton about. I won't be a minute." Left alone together, Poirot bent forward and murmured to Katherine, "You are distraite, mademoiselle. Your thoughts, they are far away, are they not?" "Just as far as England, no farther." Guided by a sudden impulse, she took the letter she had received that morning and handed it across to him to read. "This is the first word that has come to me from my old life. Somehow or other, it hurts." He read it through and then handed it back to her. "So, you are going back to St. Mary Mead?" he said. "No, I am not," said Katherine. "Why should I?" "Ah," said Poirot, "it is my mistake. You will excuse me one little minute." He strolled across to where Lennox Tamplin was talking to Van Alden and Knighton. The American looked old and haggard. He greeted Poirot with a curt nod, but without any other sign of animation. As he turned to reply to some observation made by Lennox, Poirot drew Knighton aside. "Monsieur Van Alden looks ill," he said. "Do you wonder?" asked Knighton. "The scandal of Derek Kettering's arrest has about put the lid on things, as far as he is concerned. He's even regretting that he asked you to find out the truth." "He should go back to England," said Poirot. "We are going the day after tomorrow." "That is good news," said Poirot. He hesitated and looked across the terrace to where Katherine was sitting. "I wish," he murmured, "that you could tell Miss Grey that." "Tell her what?" That Monsieur Van Alden is returning to England." Knighton looked a little puzzled, but he readily crossed the terrace and joined Katherine. Poirot saw him go with a satisfied nod of the head, and then joined Lennox and the American. After a minute or two they joined the others. Conversation was general for a few minutes. Then the millionaire and his secretary departed. Poirot also prepared to take his departure. "A thousand thanks for your hospitality, mesdemoiselles," he cried. "It has been a most charming luncheon. Ma foi, I needed it." He swelled out his chest and thumped it. "I am now a lion, a giant. Ah, Mademoiselle Katherine, you have not seen me as I can be. You have seen the gentle, the calm Hercule Poirot, but there is another Hercule Poirot. I go now to bully, to threaten, to strike terror into the hearts of those who listen to me." He looked at them in a self-satisfied way, and they both appeared to be duly impressed, though Lennox was biting her underlip, and the corners of Katherine's mouth had a suspicious twitch. "And I shall do it," he said gravely. "Oh, yes, I shall succeed." He had gone but a few steps when Katherine's voice made him turn. "Monsieur Poirot, I want to tell you, I think you were quite right in what you said. I am going back to England, almost immediately." Poirot stared at her very hard, and under the directness of his scrutiny she blushed. "I see," he said gravely. "I don't believe you do," said Katherine. "I know more than you think, mademoiselle," he said quietly. He left her with an odd little smile upon his lips. Entering a waiting car, he drove to Antibes. Hippolyte, The Comte de la Roche's wooden-faced manservant was busy at the Villa Marina polishing his master's beautiful cut table glass. The Comte de la Roche himself had gone to Monte Carlo for the day. Chancing to look out of the window, Hippolyte espied a visitor walking briskly up to the hall door, a visitor of so uncommon a type that Hippolyte, experienced as he was, had some difficulty in placing him. Calling to his wife, Marie, who was busy in the kitchen, he drew her attention to what he called ce type-là. "It is not the police again?" said Marie anxiously. "Look for yourself," said Hippolyte. Marie looked. "Certainly not the police," she declared. "I am glad." "Oh, they have not really worried us much," said Hippolyte. "In fact, but for Monsieur le Comte's warning, I should never have guessed that stranger at the wine shop to be what he was." The hall bell pealed, and Hippolyte, in a grave and decorous manner, went to open the door. "Monsieur le Comte, I regret to say, is not at home." The little man with the large moustaches beamed placidly. "I know that," he replied. "You are Hippolyte Flavel, are you not?" "Oh, yes, monsieur. That is my name." "And you have a wife, Marie Flavel?" "Yes, monsieur, but—" "I desire to see you both," said the stranger, and he stepped nimbly past Hippolyte into the hall. "Your wife is doubtless in the kitchen," he said. "I will go there." Before Hippolyte could recover his breath, the other had selected the right door at the back of the hall and passed along the passage and into the kitchen, where Marie paused, open-mouthed, to stare at him. "Voilà," said the stranger, and sank into a wooden armchair. "I am Hercule Poirot." "Yes, monsieur?" "You do not know the name?" "I have never heard of it," said Hippolyte. "Permit me to say that you have been badly educated. It is the name of one of the great ones of this world." He sighed and folded his hands across his chest. Hippolyte and Marie were staring at him uneasily. They were at a loss what to make of this unexpected and extremely strange visitor. "Monsieur desires—" murmured Hippolyte mechanically. "I desire to know why you have lied to the police." "Monsieur!" cried Hippolyte. "I? Lied to the police? Never have I done such a thing." Monsieur Poirot shook his head. "You are wrong," he said. "You have done it on several occasions. Let me see." He took a small notebook from his pocket and consulted it. "Ah, yes. On 7 occasions at least. I will recite them to you." In a gentle, unemotional voice, he proceeded to outline the 7 occasions. Hippolyte was taken aback. "But it is not of these past lapses that I wish to speak," continued Poirot. "Only, my dear friend, do not get into the habit of thinking yourself too clever. I come now to the particular lie in which I am concerned, your statement that the Comte de la Roche arrived at this villa on the morning of 14th of January. But that was no lie, monsieur. That was the truth. Monsieur le Comte arrived here on the morning of Tuesday the 14th. That is so, Marie, is it not?" Marie assented eagerly. "Ah, yes, that is quite right. I remember it perfectly." "Oh," said Poirot. "And what did you give your good master for déjeuner that day?" Marie paused, trying to collect herself. "Odd," said Poirot, "how one remembers some things and forgets others." He leant forward and struck the table a blow with his fist. His eyes flashed with anger. Yes, it is as I say. You tell your lies and you think nobody knows, but there are 2 people who know. Yes, 2 people, and one is le bon Dieu." He raised a hand to heaven, and then settling himself back in his chair and shutting his eyelids, he murmured comfortably, "And the other is Hercule Poirot." "I assure you, monsieur, you are completely mistaken. Monsieur le Comte left Paris on Monday night." "True," said Poirot, "by the Rapide. I do not know where he broke his journey. Perhaps you do not know that. What I do know is that he arrived here on Wednesday morning and not on Tuesday morning." "Monsieur is mistaken," said Marie stolidly. Poirot rose to his feet. "Then the law must take its course," he murmured. "A pity." "What do you mean, monsieur?" asked Marie with a shade of uneasiness. "You will be arrested and held as accomplices concerned in the murder of Mrs. Katherine, the English lady who was killed." "Murder?" The man's face had gone chalk white, his knees knocked together. Marie dropped the rolling pin and began to weep. "But it is impossible, impossible. I thought—" "Since you stick to your story, there is nothing to be said. I think you are both foolish." He was turning towards the door when an agitated voice arrested him. Monsieur, just a little moment. I had no idea that it was anything of this kind. I thought it was just a matter concerning a lady. There have been little awkwardnesses with the police over ladies before, but murder, that is very different." "I have no patience with you," cried Poirot. He turned round on them and angrily shook his fist in Hippolyte's face. "Am I to stop here all day, arguing with a couple of imbeciles thus? It is the truth I want. If you will not give it to me, that is your lookout. For the last time, when did Monsieur le Comte arrive at la Villa Marina? Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning?" "Wednesday," gasped the man, and behind him Marie nodded confirmation. Poirot regarded them for a minute or two, then inclined his head gravely. "You are wise, my children," he said quietly. "Very nearly you were in serious trouble." He left the Villa Marina, smiling to himself. "One guess confirmed," he murmured to himself. "Shall I take a chance on the other?" It was 6 o'clock when the card of Monsieur Hercule Poirot was brought up to Mirelle. She stared at it for a moment or two, and then nodded. When Poirot entered, he found her walking up and down the room feverishly. She turned on him furiously. "Well?" she cried. "Well? What is it now? Have you not tortured me enough, all of you? Have you not made me betray my poor Derrick? What more do you want?" "Just one little question, mademoiselle. After the train left Lyon, when you entered Mrs. Catherine's compartment—" "What is that?" Poirot looked at her with an air of mild reproach, and began again. "I say, when you entered Mrs. Catherine's compartment—" "I never did." "And found her—" "I never did." "Ah, sacré!" He turned on her in a rage and shouted at her, so that she cowered back before him. "Will you lie to me? I tell you, I know what happened as well as though I had been there. You went into her compartment, and you found her dead. I tell you, I know it. To lie to me is dangerous. Be careful, Mademoiselle Mirelle." Her eyes wavered beneath his gaze and fell. I didn't," she began uncertainly, and stopped. "There is only one thing about which I wonder," said Poirot. "I wonder, mademoiselle, if you found what you were looking for, or whether—" "Whether what?" "Or whether someone else had been before you." I will answer no more questions," screamed the dancer. She tore herself away from Poirot's restraining hand, and flinging herself down on the floor in a frenzy, she screamed and sobbed. A frightened maid came rushing in. Hercule Poirot shrugged his shoulders, raised his eyebrows, and quietly left the room. But he seemed satisfied. Chapter 30. Miss Viner Gives Judgment. Katherine looked out of Miss Viner's bedroom window. It was raining, not violently, but with a quiet, well-bred persistence. The window looked out on a strip of front garden, with a path down to the gate, and neat little flower beds on either side, where later roses and pinks and blue hyacinths would bloom. Miss Viner was lying in a large Victorian bedstead. A tray with the remains of breakfast had been pushed to one side, and she was busy opening her correspondence and making various caustic comments upon it. Katherine had an open letter in her hand and was reading it through for the second time. It was dated from the Ritz Hotel, Paris. "Chère Mademoiselle Katherine," it began, "I trust that you are in good health and that the return to the English winter has not proved too depressing. I prosecute my inquiries with the utmost diligence. Do not think that this is the holiday that I take here. Very shortly I shall be in England, and I hope then to have the pleasure of meeting you once more. It shall be so, shall it not? On arrival in London, I shall write to you. You remember that we are the colleagues in this affair, but indeed I think you know that very well. Be assured, mademoiselle, of my most respectful and devoted sentiments. Hercule Poirot." Katherine frowned slightly. It was as though something in the letter puzzled and intrigued her. "A choir boys' picnic, indeed," came from Miss Viner. "Tommy Saunders and Albert Dykes ought to be left behind, and I shan't subscribe to it unless they are. What those two boys think they're doing in church on Sundays, I don't know. Tommy sang, 'Oh, God, make speed to save us,' and never opened his lips again, and if Albert Dykes wasn't sucking a mint humbug, my nose is not what it is and always has been." "I know, they are awful," agreed Katherine. She opened her second letter, and a sudden flush came to her cheeks. Miss Viner's voice in the room seemed to recede into the far distance. When she came back to a sense of her surroundings, Miss Viner was bringing a long speech to a triumphant termination. "And I said to her, 'Not at all, as it happens. Miss Grey is Lady Tamplin's own cousin. What do you think of that?' Were you fighting my battles for me? That was very sweet of you. You can put it that way if you like. There is nothing to me in a title. Vicar's wife or no vicar's wife, that woman is a cat. Hinting you had bought your way into society. Perhaps she was not so very far wrong. And look at you," continued Miss Viner. "Have you come back a stuck-up fine lady, as well you might have done? No. There you are, as sensible as ever you were, with a pair of good Balbriggan stockings on and your sensible shoes. I spoke to Ellen about it only yesterday. 'Ellen,' I said, 'you look at Miss Grey. She has been hobnobbing with some of the greatest in the land, and does she go about as you do, with skirts up to her knees and silk stockings that ladder when you look at them, and the most ridiculous shoes that I ever set eyes on?' Katherine smiled a little to herself. It had apparently been worthwhile to conform to Miss Viner's prejudices. The old lady went on with increasing gusto. "It has been a great relief to me that you have not had your head turned. Only the other day I was looking for my cuttings. I have several about Lady Tamplin and her war hospital and what not, but I cannot lay my hand upon them. I wish you would look, my dear. Your eyesight is better than mine. They are all in a box in the bureau drawer." Katherine glanced down at the letter in her hand and was about to speak, but checked herself, and going over to the bureau, found the box of cuttings and began to look over them. Since her return to St. Mary Mead, her heart had gone out to Miss Viner in admiration of the old woman's stoicism and pluck. She felt that there was little she could do for her old friend, but she knew from experience how much those seemingly small trifles meant to old people. "Here is one," she said presently. "Viscountess Tamplin, who is running her villa at Nice as an officers' hospital, has just been the victim of a sensational robbery, her jewels having been stolen. Amongst them were some very famous emeralds, heirlooms of the Tamplin family." "Probably paste," said Miss Viner. "A lot of these society women's jewels are." "Here is another," said Katherine, "a picture of her, a charming camera study of Viscountess Tamplin, with her little daughter Lennox." "Let me look," said Miss Viner. "You can't see much of the child's face, can you? But I dare say that is just as well. Things go by contraries in this world, and beautiful mothers have hideous children. I dare say the photographer realized that to take the back of the child's head was the best thing he could do for her." Katherine laughed. "One of the smartest hostesses on the Riviera this season is Viscountess Tamplin, who has a villa at Cap Martin. Her cousin, Miss Grey, who recently inherited a vast fortune in a most romantic manner, is staying with her there." "That is the one I wanted," said Miss Viner. "I expect there has been a picture of you in one of the papers that I have missed. You know the kind of thing. Mrs. Somebody or other Jones-Williams at the something or other point-to-point, usually carrying a shooting stick and having one foot lifted up in the air. It must be a trial to some of them to see what they look like." Katherine did not answer. She was smoothing out the cutting with her finger, and her face had a puzzled, worried look. Then she drew the second letter out of its envelope and mastered its contents once more. She turned to her friend. "Miss Viner, I wonder, there is a friend of mine, someone I met on the Riviera, who wants very much to come down and see me here." "A man?" said Miss Viner. "Yes." "Who is he?" "He is secretary to Mr. Van Alden, the American millionaire." "What is his name?" "Knighton. Major Knighton." Secretary to a millionaire, and wants to come down here? Now, Katherine, I'm going to say something to you for your own good. You're a nice girl, and a sensible girl, and though you have your head screwed on the right way about most things, every woman makes a fool of herself once in her life, 10 to 1 that this man is after your money." With a gesture, she arrested Katherine's reply. "I have been waiting for something of this kind. What is a secretary to a millionaire? 9 times out of 10 it is a young man who likes living soft. A young man with nice manners, and a taste for luxury, and no brains, and no enterprise. If there is anything that is a softer job than being a secretary to a millionaire, it is marrying a rich woman for her money. I am not saying that you might not be some man's fancy, but you are not young, and though you have a very good complexion, you are not a beauty. And what I say to you is, don't make a fool of yourself. But if you are determined to do so, do see that your money is properly tied up on yourself. There now, I have finished. What have you got to say?" "Nothing," said Katherine. "But would you mind if he did come down and see me?" "I wash my hands of it," said Miss Viner. "I've done my duty, and whatever happens now is on your own head. Would you like him to lunch or dinner? I dare say Ellen could manage dinner, that is, if she didn't lose her head." "Lunch would be very nice," said Katherine. "It's awfully kind of you, Miss Viner. He asked me to ring him up, so I will do so, and say that we shall be pleased if he will lunch with us. He will motor down from town." "Ellen does a steak with grilled tomatoes pretty fairly," said Miss Viner. "She doesn't do it well, but she does it better than anything else. It's no good having a tart, because she's heavy-handed with pastry, but her little castle puddings are not bad, and I dare say you could find a nice piece of Stilton at Abbott's. I've always heard that gentlemen like a nice piece of Stilton, and there is a good deal of father's wine left. A bottle of sparkling Moselle, perhaps?" "Oh, no, Miss Viner, that is really not necessary." "Nonsense, my child. No gentleman is happy unless he drinks something with his meal. There is some good pre-war whisky, if you think you would prefer that. Now, do as I say and don't argue. The key of the wine cellar is in the 3rd drawer down in the dressing-table, in the 2nd pair of stockings on the left-hand side." Katherine went obediently to the spot indicated. "The 2nd pair, now mind. The 1st pair has my diamond earrings and my filigree brooch in it." "Oh," said Katherine, rather taken aback. "Wouldn't you like them put in your jewel case?" Miss Viner gave vent to a terrific and prolonged snort. "No, indeed. I have much too much sense for that sort of thing, thank you. Dear, dear. I well remember how my poor father had a safe built in downstairs, pleased as Punch he was with it, and he said to my mother, 'Now, Mary, you bring me your jewels, in their case, every night, and I will lock them away for you. My mother was a very tactful woman, and she knew that gentlemen like having their own way, and she brought in the jewel case to be locked up, just as he said. And one night, burglars broke in, and of course, naturally, the first thing they went for was the safe. It would be, with my father talking up and down the village and bragging about it, until you might have thought he kept all King Solomon's diamonds in there. They made a clean sweep, got the tankards, the silver cups, and the presentation gold plate that my father had presented to him, and the jewel case. She sighed reminiscently. My father was in a great state over my mother's jewels. There was the Venetian set, and some very fine cameos, and some pale pink corals, and 2 diamond rings, with quite large stones in them. And then, of course, she had to tell him that, being a sensible woman, she had kept her jewellery rolled up in a pair of corsets, and there it was, still as safe as anything. And the jewel case had been quite empty? Oh, no, dear, said Miss Viner. It would have been too light a weight then. My mother was a very intelligent woman. She saw to that. She kept her buttons in the jewellery case, and a very handy place it was. Boot buttons in the top tray, trouser buttons in the second tray, and assorted buttons below. Curiously enough, my father was quite annoyed with her. He said he didn't like deceit. But I mustn't go on chattering on. You want to go and ring up your friend, and mind you choose a nice piece of steak, and tell Ellen she is not to have holes in her stockings when she waits at lunch. Is her name Ellen or Helen, Miss Viner? I thought... Miss Viner closed her eyes. Can sound my H's, dear, as well as anyone, but Helen is not a suitable name for a servant. I don't know what the mothers in the lower classes are coming to nowadays. The rain had cleared away when Knighton arrived at the cottage. The pale, fitful sunshine shone down on it and burnished Catherine's head as she stood in the doorway to welcome him. He came up to her quickly, almost boyishly. I say, I hope you don't mind. I simply had to see you again soon. I hope the friend you're staying with doesn't mind. Come in and make friends with her, said Katherine. She can be most alarming, but you will soon find that she has the softest heart in the world. Miss Viner was enthroned majestically in the drawing-room, wearing a complete set of the cameos which had been so providentially preserved in the family. She greeted Knighton with dignity and an austere politeness which would have damped many men. Knighton, however, had a charm of manner which was not easily set aside, and after about 10 minutes Miss Viner thawed perceptibly. Luncheon was a merry meal, and Ellen, or Helen, in a new pair of silk stockings devoid of ladders, performed prodigies of waiting. Afterwards, Katherine and Knighton went for a walk, and they came back to have tea tete-a-tete, since Miss Viner had gone to lie down. When the car had finally driven off, Katherine went slowly upstairs. A voice called her, and she went into Miss Viner's bedroom. "Friend gone?" "Yes, thank you so much for letting me ask him down." "Oh, no need to thank me. Do you think I'm the sort of old curmudgeon who never will do anything for anybody?" "I think you are a dear," said Katherine affectionately. "Humph," said Miss Viner, mollified. As Katherine was leaving the room, she called her back. "Katherine?" "Yes?" "I was wrong about that young man of yours. A man, when he is making up to anybody, can be cordial and gallant and full of little attentions and altogether charming, but when a man is really in love, he can't help looking like a sheep. Now, whenever that young man looked at you, he looked like a sheep. I take back all I said this morning. It is genuine."